Bert stood there with a solemn look on his face. He stared down at the tablet in his hand. The screen was flashing red. Well, draw curtains, fade to black, he said. Weapon platforms and silos are out of commission. Mordecai nodded. Good job. Bert nodded back at Mordecai. Rachel had returned with Alicia and Aiden. They were covered in concrete dust and sweat. Other than that, they were okay. Alicia was looking at Leland. He was losing a lot of blood. She worked frantically. Anything else? Mordecai asked. There is the tank, but it was on the surface when they hit us from orbit. Andre was driving. He replied with a bit of sadness in his voice. Mordecai nodded and gave Bert a sympathetic squeeze on his shoulder. Bert and Andre were close. See if he made it, Mordecai said. I'm sure he did, Bert said. Kai, I need to get him to a medical center, Alicia said. Bert, Mordecai said. The closest one is in River's Landing, he said. But we can't go there. Here, Bert, anything here, Alicia said. Bert's face contorted a bit. Yes, there are some medical supplies down 2 floors. They are in a room with a blue door. Aiden, Rachel, Mordecai said. They both nodded and turned and headed for the door. Hold up, Bert said. He walked over to a cabinet, opened it up, pulled out 2 flashlights and tossed them to Rachel and Aiden. You might need those. Power is out all over. Rachel and Aiden caught them. Rachel checked hers. It worked. Thanks, Bert. Anything else? Yeah, there's an armory down there too. We might need anything left, he said. Rachel nodded. Right. She shot a look towards Mordecai and then her father. Then she left the room. Her and Aiden disappeared down the corridor. Mordecai kneeled down beside his wife. She was shaking. He put his arm around her and kissed the top of her head. It's going to be all right. She pushed away from him, her eyes big, burning with fire. This looks all right to you? But before he could answer, she stood and walked away from him towards the door. She stopped and put one hand on her hip and pointed at Leland. He might die. You almost died today. And then we all almost just died. And you think everything is going to be all right, she said. Look, everyone, just calm down, Bert said in his best diplomatic voice. Alicia turned and shot Bert a cold, glaring stare. Shut up. He held up his hands and stepped back. She turned her attention back to Mordecai. Tell me, Kai, when is this all supposed to get all right? Mordecai stood there and said nothing to her. There was nothing to say. He knew things were messed up. They had been for a long time. He didn't consult her about any of this. He pushed her into it. Her anger was justified. He didn't know what to say or do, so he just turned his back to her. That's right, just ignore me, she scoffed, and then left the room, slamming the door. Bert just stood there. Only if he could weaponize that. Mordecai gave him a look. Bert, please, he said softly. Right, sorry, Bert replied. What are our options of getting out of here? Mordecai asked. Well, not good, Bert replied. Most of the vehicles on the surface are gone. There are a few tunnels that lead out to a ravine a few clicks north of here we could use. I'm guessing One Earth doesn't know about them. Mordecai nodded. All right, you think you can get the PA system back up and running and let everyone know to get to them? Yeah, I'll try. He picked back up the tablet and began working. We will need something to transport Leland, Mordecai said. Bert said. The only thing that we had wheels was that wheelchair you were in. Mordecai nodded. I guess I will have to do. He headed for the door, entering the corridor. Alicia was several feet down, crouching down against the wall. She was crying. Mordecai walked over to her and knelt down in front of her. He put a hand on her shoulder. She fell into him and wrapped her arms around him and cried into his chest. He wrapped his arms around her and caressed her head. I'm scared, she said in a low voice. I know, he said. I know. I've asked a lot of you. We have a lot to talk about, but right now we need to get out of here. It will only be a matter of time before they swarm us. I need you to stabilize Leland so we can move him. She nodded, her head in his chest. Yes, yes, she said. He gave her another squeeze and kissed her head. Unseen speakers came to life and Bert's voice came over them. To all that can hear this, use the tunnels on sublevel 12. Take only what you can carry for the entire day. Leave everything else. Mordecai pulled away from her and slowly stood. He held onto her hand as she rose with him. When they stopped, he looked deep into her eyes. It's going to be all right, he finally said to her after a long gaze. She nodded and let out a faint chuckle. You know that was the first thing you ever said to me? Oh, he said. Yeah, she said, with a slight smile on her face as she remembered a better time. It was 3,500 years ago. Our shuttles had landed next to each other. I walked out to the river and there you were. You were skipping rocks with Leland. You turned and saw me, invited me to the joint. I hesitantly picked up a rock and it skipped 3 times. He nodded. Yeah, I remember that. That is when you said it. You said it skipped 3 times. That meant everything was going to be alright, he said. He smiled. Was I wrong? She shook her head. Not about that. His smile faded a bit as she said this. He could see she was still mad at him. They heard footsteps coming down the corridor. The lights were flickering. They could see it was Aiden and Rachel carrying a lot of equipment. They reached Alicia and Mordecai. Rachel shoved a medical kit into Alicia's hand. That's all we have, Rachel said. Is it going to be enough? Alicia opened it up and looked over it quickly. She ran her hands down a few items. I can make this work. Mordecai took a few of the ammo boxes and a rifle from Aiden. We need to get the wheelchair, Mordecai said. We will need it to transport your uncle. Aiden nodded. Okay, Dad. Aiden turned and went over to the wheelchair, turning it back over and dusted it off. He put what he was carrying into the seat. Then they all entered back into the room. Colonel Lee Wei stood there in Colonel Jimenez's quarters. She was up, walking around with a cane. The rapid skin and hair grafts had finally kicked in, and most of her hair had returned. She wasn't fully healed. She would still need another month or 2. She was walking back and forth, but slowly and with some trouble. She could feel every bone in her lower back grinding and popping, and every muscle was screaming at her to lay back down. She was holding a tablet, reading the after-action report. Anger was boiling in her. Not only was the compound not eradicated like she ordered, there were survivors, and they had gotten away. Their best estimates only put the total enemies killed around 75. However, their own losses were staggering, well above acceptable. Colonel, at least 3,700 dead, another 800 wounded. We lost an Achilles-class warship, 12 stealth fighters, and 3/4 of an armored battalion. Is that correct? She said, not taking her eyes off the tablet. Yes, ma'am, that is correct, he replied. What do you have to say for this? She asked. Ma'am, we didn't have the full intel on the defensive capabilities of the compound, he replied. She looked up from the tablet. Colonel, your report is incomplete. It doesn't list here the incompetent soldier who is responsible for that. He took a hard gulp. I was in charge. I'll take responsibility, ma'am. Better goddamn believe you are. I'm holding you fully responsible for this fuck-up, she said. 3,700 dead. You get back out there, turn over every rock, burn every damn forest down that you have to. You arrest anyone that even looks suspicious. Raise every shithole village till you find every last one of them and bring them to justice. She tossed the tablet at him, hitting him in the chest. He didn't react. It bounced off his chest and hit the floor. She heard the screen glass break. She let a small amused smile creep on her face. Her new jaw and skin on her face felt weird as she did this. Figures, she said, as she looked down at the broken tablet. Why are you still here, Colonel? Shouldn't you be doing something? He nodded and said, Yes, ma'am. He turned and left her quarters. She walked over to her bed and fell back into it. She was exhausted and in a good deal of pain, both physically and emotionally. All those lives lost to a bunch of farmers with pitchforks, she thought. How did he, Mordecai, manage to pull all that off under her nose? They were sure that they didn't have any defensive weapons like that. They had monitored this planet for several months before coming here. They even sent in covert teams as travelers from one of the other colony worlds to gather intel. Nothing she saw or anyone reported said that they would put up much of a fight. How did they underestimate them so badly? Or did she just underestimate what she thought was a simple farmer? It was a long walk down the tunnels, a lot longer than a few kilometers that Bert said that they were, or at least it felt like that. Mordecai was on the verge of collapse when they reached the mouth of the tunnel. He was pushing Leland, who was still unconscious in the wheelchair. The rebar was still sticking out of his gut. Alicia was afraid to remove it without the equipment to do so. She stabilized him as well as she could. and then they made a hard journey down to the lowest level to the tunnels. The elevators were out, so they had to take the stairs. It was a grueling 9 flights of stairs with easing the wheelchair down each step. They were all covered in sweat when they finally reached the lowest level. But they made it. That was the important part. When they came out into the cool night air, Mordecai passed off the chair to his son, and he collapsed against a boulder near the entrance. Rachel came up to him with a bottle of water. It was warm, but he didn't care. He downed the whole thing in a few gulps. He tossed the empty bottle to the ground. He exhaled. He wanted to close his eyes and sleep for a week. "How are you holding up?" she asked. He nodded. "I'll be fine." "Yeah, we all will be." She shot a look over at her father. Her eyes began to tear up. There would be plenty of time to cry later, but right now she needed to hold it together. "Some good news," she said. "Andre just survived with the tank. He's using it to pull a trailer. We will be able to load the wounded on it." With his eyes still closed, he nodded. "That's good." "And Bert says there are a few sympathetic people nearby. He's been in contact with them. They are setting up medical facilities for us and places to hide," she said. "You're just a little bit further." He could hear the squeaking of an axle and the crunching of the ground underneath something heavy. He hoped that was Andre. "Andre?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. She sat down beside him and handed him a bag and another bottle of water. He immediately popped his cap and took a few drinks of the warm water, and he looked down at the bag she had handed him. It was a bag of nuts. He wasn't really all that hungry. He handed them back to her. She took them and stuffed them in the vest jacket she was wearing. He took another few drinks. He couldn't remember the last time he had been this thirsty. "What's the word on the emissaries?" he asked. Andre said they swarmed the compound about a half hour after we left. They were very cautious as they did. He said he had wished he had convinced Bert to rig it up to explode, she replied. "Oh, I almost forgot. The head count is 350. He opened his eyes and looked at her. He was quite shocked. "Really?" She nodded. "At last count before the attack, there were 415. That's a lot of dead. When we get to where we are going, I want a list of names, so I can start contacting their relatives and let them know what happened," he said a bit grimly. "Okay," she said. The tank pulled up several meters from him. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. Then he almost laughed. It was a tank with tracks. It looked like something from thousands of years ago from a forgotten war. It was pretty beat up. He wasn't sure if it was from the attack or not. The top of it opened up. The giant known as Andre crawled out of it, and 3 other people came out after him. Mordecai was a bit surprised they all could fit in there. Andre looked around, and he saw him and started walking towards him. He got to Mordecai. "Hell of a show," he said in his deep, booming voice. "Those weapon platforms performed beautifully." Mordecai nodded. That they did. Mordecai then saw Bert and several other people running from the tunnel. Bert ran over to him. "We might want to get everyone to cover. Gonna blow the tunnel. Emissary bastards are already down in it. Coming this way." "Right," Mordecai said. Grunting as he forced himself up, his entire body screamed. "Everyone, can I get your attention?" He said in the loudest voice that he could muster, but only a few people took notice of him. "Andre, do me the honors." Andre nodded, knowing exactly what he meant. "Hey, everyone," he said in a very loud and booming voice. "We need to move back and take cover. We are about to blow the entrance." Rachel helped Mordecai over to Alicia and Aiden, who was still with Leland. Alicia was checking his blood pressure when they got there. They all walked together towards the tank and took up cover behind it. Bert was standing there. He began to count. 3, 2, 1. He pushed a button on the small black box in his left hand. The cave spit out a gush of air and dust, and then there was a loud boom that seemed to echo all over the valley they were in. It made all their ears ring for a few moments. The dust settled, and Mordecai let out a small cough. "All right, let's get the wounded up on the trailer, and let's head out," he said. Everyone came out of cover and began moving about. Mordecai helped get Leland out of the wheelchair. He was still unconscious. They put him down on the trailer, and Alicia got up there with him and covered him with a foil blanket from the medical kit she had slung over her shoulder. She stopped what she was doing and looked at Mordecai. "And what do you think you are doing?" she asked. "I'm fine," he said. "The hell you are. You got hit with more than 2,000 rems of radiation. If you weren't a goddamn immortal, you would be dead. Now get your ass on this trailer." and let me take a look at you. That's an order," she demanded of him. He looked from Rachel to Aiden, then to Andre, and then finally Bert. He could see in their eyes they agreed with her. Finally, Rachel spoke up. "You look like shit," Rachel said. He knew he wasn't going to win this argument. He got up onto the trailer and sat behind where Leland was laying. Alicia began to check his vitals. He watched Rachel and Aiden go. They started picking up equipment and helping organize people. Soon they were out of his field of view as they disappeared into the forest in front of them. Soon they would all be headed that way. The trailer was almost filled with the most serious of wounded, but there were plenty who were wounded. He watched them all as they filed past the trailer. He wondered if this was all going to be worth it, to finish what they had started here that day. He closed his eyes and leaned his head